Dumbledore smiled and said,
"It's all right, Miss Hall. Although you just failed, you clearly have an outstanding talent for apparition. As you learn more magic and master the magic within you, you will naturally be able to apparate."
She thanked him sweetly.
"Thank you, Professor."
Over the next 2 days, Edward used apparition even to go to the bathroom, and the effect was obvious. He became more and more proficient at apparition. By the 3rd day, he began to apparate frequently between the common room and Hogsmeade. On the 5th day, Edward went to Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, and other places, and by then he had completely mastered apparat. During this time, he spoke with Dumbledore privately and selectively shared some information about the mysterious world. After listening, Dumbledore only asked a few questions about potions, then nodded thoughtfully and ended the conversation. Time flew by, and the day before their departure for the mysterious world arrived. Suddenly, as if by prior agreement, Edward and Audrey both lost interest in studying. The two sat in the Quidditch stands, gazing at the forbidden forest in the distance. Edward was playing with Lilith in his arms, holding a small dried fish. The little one jumped around, trying to get the fish, but couldn't reach it. In frustration, she grabbed Edward's hand and started nibbling on it. Audrey took a breath, her face filled with trepidation.
"We're sure we can get back, right?"
Edward tossed the dried fish out, and Lilith leaped to catch it. He laughed and asked, "Are you only starting to think about this now?"
"No, it's just that. Before I could only comfort myself and believe it. But now that I'm going back tomorrow, I'm scared."
Edward said first in Chinese, then switched to Rune. "That's what you call feeling apprehensive about being close to home." She tilted her head slightly and asked,
"Were you speaking the language of the manuscript by Emperor Roselle just now?" You actually guessed that? Your sixth sense is way too accurate."
"It's not a guess. I looked through all the books in your seamless stretch spell bag. Apart from English and ancient Latin, the rest were all in that language."
"You even know ancient Latin?"
If you want to understand more magic books, isn't ancient Latin the foundation? Also, don't try to change the subject." Edward shrugged helplessly. All right, you guessed right. That is indeed the language of Emperor Roselle's manuscript." She immediately raised her hand with great interest and said,
"I want to learn."
Edward slapped her hand away impatiently. "Weren't you just feeling nerving for home? You're all better now?"
"The thought of being able to understand the Emperor's manuscripts in the future has suddenly made me less afraid. On the contrary, I am looking forward to it."
"Next time, we'll talk about it next time."
When Audrey sees Roselle's scandalous affairs, and the witch's scent is really good, with great anticipation, her world view will surely be shattered.
Edward slapped his forehead. "Oh, right. Do you have any suggestions about my potions?" "Actually, I've only just come into contact with the mystical field myself. If it weren't for—" Her heart skipped a beat.
Audrey, oh Audrey, you almost mentioned the Tarot Club. But Edward has selflessly shown me another world. Shouldn't I have kept the Tarot Club a secret from him? But I already promised Mr. Fool. Maybe I could ask Mr. Fool for advice at the next tarot meeting and see if Edward could be introduced as well. But it's been 2 weeks already, and I've missed 2 tarot meetings in a row. Will I be expelled?
After a while of wild thoughts, she took a deep breath to calm herself down. "Actually, I only became an extraordinary by chance, with the help of a friend. By the way, my friend said he would take me to a gathering of extraordinary people so I can see what potion recipes are there." At this point, Audrey's face darkened.
"But that was 2 weeks ago."
Edward was astonished upon hearing this.
"Huh? Didn't I tell you? When we were in this world, time was relatively still on your side. That is to say, when we go back, we will return to the point in time when you left."
Her eyes widened in surprise, overwhelmed by a strong sense of relief and joy.
Really? This is wonderful. I didn't miss the Tarot Club, and I wasn't expelled from the Tarot Club.
Edward continued. What I'm trying to say is, how am I supposed to leave your house once I get back to your world? Even though I now have apparition, I can't go to places I've never been before. It's simple. First, let Susie go out and keep watch. Then you hide in the leather bag and I'll come out. I'll find another opportunity to take you out. By the way, you don't need to worry too much about being wanted by Dad. She thought about it carefully. I'll try to persuade him. At worst, I'll say that you're an extraordinary person I know, and it's all a misunderstanding. Anyway, you haven't done anything wrong. Edward coughed and raised his hand. In fact, I did.
I blew up your room.
Audrey's emerald green eyes were filled with confusion and shock. Edward briefly recounted what happened after she entered the leather bag. She wasn't sure if it was genuine praise or sarcasm.
You really thought of everything. Can it be restored with a healing spell?
Edward's expression turned serious. If there's no serious damage to the scene, it should be fine. Although restoration is a basic spell, its actual effect is like turning back time. I don't recommend exposing it so openly. She suddenly laughed.
Then I guess I'll have to say goodbye to all my dresses. I've had enough of those cumbersome and restrictive clothes.
But I believe your parents will definitely buy you even more dresses to make up for it. That's the world of the rich. Audrey pursed her lips. Thank you for reminding me. After 2 weeks of living in another world, Audrey's personality has obviously changed quite a bit compared to the original work. After all, here she doesn't have to care about other people's opinions or deal with all kinds of nobles. In the end, she is just a 17-year-old girl. However, the education and habits she has developed over the past 10 years will likely cause her to revert. She will be the most dazzling gem in Backland as soon as she returns to her original environment. The next day, the room of requirement at Hogwarts. Edward took a small sip of the polyjuice potion and waited for it to take effect. Audrey asked curiously, "The book says that everyone's polyjuice potion tastes different. What does mine taste like? Why don't you try it yourself?" "No, it must taste awful." "Well, to be honest, the texture isn't great, but it doesn't taste weird either. It's much better than what I've had before." As they spoke, Edward's physique began to change, and he quickly transformed back into Audrey's appearance. His once fitting clothes, now a size too big. She gently poked Edward's face with her finger.
Even though I've seen it once before, it still feels so amazing, like looking in a mirror. Wow, my skin is actually this good.
Edward pointed his wand at his clothes and said, "Change quickly." The magic robe quickly transformed into a dress identical to Audrey's. She was startled at first, then puffed out her cheeks and hummed.
You really do know this spell.
Edward understood that she was referring to the time she was asked to take off her clothes, so he argued, "The transformation effect of quickly changing clothes only lasts for half a day. I didn't know I would be able to come back at the time, so changing clothes was definitely safer." She stared into Edward's eyes with her emerald green eyes, as if to say, "Are you sure you want to lie in front of the audience?" Edward avoided eye contact, pretending to check his things. "Ahem, there's less than half an hour left. Have you brought everything?" "I only brought my wand, a few spellbooks, and 2 bags of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans." Edward exclaimed in surprise.
You actually like to eat this?
"Of course not. I planned to give it to a friend to eat." She smiled, her eyes narrowing.
For example, Anne, Hilbert, Viscount Grelint. It's interesting to think about them tasting some exotic flavors.
"Well, I wish them good luck." Audrey thought for a moment, and then asked, "Are you sure you don't want to consider taking Lilith with you? We won't be back for another 15 days. Your world is too dangerous. I can't even guarantee my own safety, so it's better to be safe. Don't worry, I've already entrusted her to Professor McGonagall." She looked regretful.
I was hoping to introduce Lilith to Susie.
After chatting for a few more minutes, Audrey went into the leather bag, leaving Edward all alone in the huge room of requirement. He stared at the wall clock, watching the time tick by second.
May Merlin bless me, and may everything go well.
When the clock struck 5, Edward vanished into thin air. Chapter 11. I'm Just a Dog. This time, the journey didn't have the same dramatic special effects or intense reaction as the trip back to the Harry Potter world 15 days ago. Edward felt a blur before his eyes and was back in the room he had left in. The gray and empty world quickly regained its color, and time began to flow again. The blonde Susie was staring at him.
Is she still alive?
Her back arched, assuming a pouncing posture, her pupils filled with seriousness.
You were swinging that stick every time you used your extraordinary abilities, but I've confirmed that the stick isn't with you. I don't want to hurt you, so please tell me, where is Audrey?
Edward silently took out his wand. He had deliberately hidden it in his sleeve before traveling through time, just in case. Susie reacted with shock. She silently retreated, sticking out her tongue and looking dazed.
Do you believe me? I'm just a dog.
Edward was both amused and exasperated. Actually, I'm Audrey's friend. It was all a misunderstanding.
You're right.
Leal. I believe it. Edward rubbed his forehead. Is someone still watching outside? The extraordinary ones are all gone. You are safe now. He waved his wand, cast a muggle banishing spell on the room, then jumped off the bed, took out his pouch, and placed it on the floor. Susie hid in the shadows of the corner, watching his every move warily. Her muscles were tense, clearly not relaxed.
They're really back?
When Audrey emerged from the leather bag and saw everything familiar, she breathed a long sigh of relief. Only then did her heart settle down. However, she frowned and said something. The air in Backlund really needs to be cleaned up. The air in your rich neighborhood is already very good. You should really go and see the poor neighborhood.
I will go.
Susie ran out in surprise.
Thank goodness, Audrey. Are you all right? Is this person really your friend? That's right.
Audrey smiled and patted her golden hair on the neck.
Long time no see, Susie. Your rune has improved so much. Huh?
It's only been less than half an hour since I last saw her, and Audrey seems a little different, but the taste is still the same. Are there any other extraordinary individuals around? Susie wagged her tail, her energy returning. They're gone from the villa, but I don't know about the areas further away. Do you need me to check? Go. She skillfully opened the door and quickly left. Edward walked up to the leather bag, stepped one foot onto the stairs, looked at Audrey, and said something. Then I'll leave the rest to you. Audrey glanced inside. So this is what it looks like from the outside. Don't worry, this secret will only belong to the two of us. Well, maybe with Susie, too. The leather bag was closed, and the surroundings became dark. Edward slumped onto the sofa and looked around. This feels a bit cramped. We need to expand the space here, or maybe we should just ask Old Man Dumbledore to buy a briefcase from Mr. Newt. He suddenly scratched his head and asked in confusion,
Wait, did I forget something?
Inside the luxurious villa of Earl Hall. Audrey waited in the room for a while, but no one came. Logically speaking, even if she wanted to rest, she couldn't just be left to her own devices. She decided to take the initiative. Upon entering the living room, Earl Hall was speaking solemnly to his brother Hilbert Hall, while several maids stood silently in the distance, heads bowed.
Audrey, why are you out here?
Earl Hall immediately went over and helped her sit down. How are you feeling now? I'm fine.
Audrey, don't worry. We will definitely catch that damned thug.
Hilbert said angrily. This. Audrey felt helpless. If she told her father now that that thug was actually my friend, he would be furious. Dad, may I go to church to pray for Goddess's blessing?
No.
Earl Hall refused without hesitation. What you need to do now is rest well and wait for that guy to be caught.
But I am still a little scared.
Earl Hall looked distressed and said something. Then I'll go and ask Archbishop St. Anthony to come over. He can give you a blessing on behalf of the goddess. No need, Father. It's fine to go to church in a few days. She lifted her skirt and curtsied. I'll go back and rest now. Take Audrey back. The two maids accompanied Audrey back the way they came. When they got near the room, one of them suddenly said something. Miss, why don't we change rooms? This room has been used by many outsiders and needs to be cleaned again. She said to another maid, something. Go and clean up. I don't think now is the time to clean.
Why? When do you plan to go?
Anyway, now is not the time, don't you think? Yes, you're right. Audrey was taken aback by the two maids' strange behavior. Then she remembered that Edward had cast a banishing spell on the room before entering the leather bag. They were clearly affected by the magic. Oh, no wonder. No one came over even though I waited inside for so long. But I don't know how to break the curse. All right, you guys go back now. I'll go back to my room by myself. The two left without hesitation. As soon as Audrey opened the door and returned to her room, Susie also came back, covered in grass clippings, as if she had really gone out to play. Audrey, I saw several extraordinary beings.
Thank you for your hard work, Susie.
Susie wagged her tail happily and looked around again.
Has that person already left?
Audrey pulled a leather pocket from her bosom and patted it. Higgins, here it is.
Is he really your friend? Why have I never met him before? Well, this is a secret between him and me. I'll tell you when I have the chance.
She tilted her head, somewhat puzzled. A secret? Okay. Audrey opened the leather bag and called inside. Edward, you forgot to lift the banishing spell on the room. Now none of the maids in the house can get close. Edward slapped his forehead.
I knew I'd forgotten something. Dad won't let me go out now, and there are extraordinary beings watching outside the villa.
Audrey looked apologetic.
I'm sorry. You may have to stay inside for a few days, but I will bring you food every day.
My family chef is no worse than an elf.
Okay? Edward readily agreed. By the way, I just thought about it. We can let Susie wander around more these next couple of days and gradually expand the area we're in. Once those extraordinary people get used to it, we can give her the leather pouch and take her to a place far away from your home before letting me out. Audrey clapped her hands gently.
Good idea. Susie, what do you think?
Susie happily wagged her tail and grinned, saying something.
Of course, no problem. No one will doubt me. After all, I'm just a dog.
Chapter 12, 1.5 meters. 3 days later. Susie, with a silk bow tied around her neck, left Earl Hall's luxurious villa as usual and went out to play happily. Along the way, she chased bees and butterflies, and her soft golden fur quickly became messy and covered with grass clippings. When she got tired of playing, she found a sunny, grassy spot and took a good nap. At noon, Susie, who was lying on the ground in a daze, was suddenly attracted by a passing hunting dog.
Woof, woof, woof.
She jumped up, barked a few times, and gave chase. The two dogs chased each other, gradually moving away from Queens and into the Jowwood neighborhood. The hunting dog was having a great time when Susie suddenly turned and walked away without warning. It stood there, frozen in place, like a naive man who had been played by a scumbag woman. Susie's main activity area was previously concentrated in Queens, where aristocrats and wealthy people lived. However, Jowwood was obviously different. It was mainly inhabited by ordinary people with a much higher population density than Queens, and it was a mixed bag of people. She remained vigilant the whole way until she was sure she hadn't attracted anyone's attention, then turned into an empty alley. She took out the leather pouch hidden inside the bough, and then used her mouth and feet to untie it. Edward, who had been waiting at the stairwell for a long time, leaped out, picked up the leather bag and stuffed it into his pocket. He had changed into a gray trench coat, white shirt, and black silk top hat. Edward squatted down in front of Susie, took a piece of dried chicken and handed it to her.
Thank you, Susie. Go back now and be careful on your journey.
Susie, with a piece of chicken in her mouth, happily wagged her tail and walked away. Call! Edward breathed a sigh of relief.
Finally, I'm free. Next, I'll find a place to stay and then think about what to do next.
He pulled out a wad of cash which Audrey had given him before he left, a full 2,000 gold pounds.
No wonder he was the angel investor of the Tarot Club and a true tycoon.
Is this what it feels like to suck up to someone's leg? It's true what they say, clinging to someone's coattails is fun for a while, and it's fun every day. The god of poverty, Klein, is crying his eyes out in the toilet.
Edward counted out 20 gold pounds, put the rest into his leather pocket. According to the cost of living in the mysterious world, without buying luxury goods or extraordinary items, it would be enough to last him a long time.
Just to be on the safe side, let's put on an iron armor spell.
He adjusted the brim of his top hat and walked out of the alley. Suddenly, everything became clear. At this moment, Backland, known as the City of Hope, gradually unfolded before him. Inside Earl Hall's luxurious villa in Queens, several members of the Church of the Night were questioning the maids about what happened 3 days ago. But they all claimed that they were too scared at the time to remember what the bandits looked like. "Wait, Dad." Audrey walked in, holding a drawing in her hand. "I heard you're planning to draw a wanted poster for the gangster. I have a strong impression of him, and I happen to be able to draw, so—" She handed a painting to Earl Hall. "I hope it will be of help to you." "Very good." Earl Hall unfolded the drawing paper, his mustache twitching slightly, and then looked at his daughter.
"Are you sure he looks like this?"
"I'm sure, Dad." The father and daughter looked at each other for a few seconds. Then Earl Hall handed the drawing paper to a person wearing a red glove. "Now that Audrey has drawn the portrait, let's leave the questioning here. As for the other methods you mentioned, there's no need to try them." "Yes, Earl Hall, we will catch him as soon as possible." The men in red gloves quickly left with their drawing paper. Earl Hall took a small sip of his black tea and said casually, "Audrey, do you still want to go to the Church of the Night to pray for the goddess's blessing?" "Yes, Dad. May I go out now?" "Then I'll go tomorrow. I'll go back to my room now." "Thank you, Dad." The father and daughter remained silent, neither saying nor asking any questions. Audrey stepped out of the living room and let out a soft sigh.
"Hey, Susie, was what I did wrong?"
Susie wagged her tail, looking completely innocent. Chapter 13. Shall we have a tense and exciting game of tarot?
"What the hell? Why are they attacking me?"
Edward was completely baffled. He had just left the Hall family's villa and hadn't done anything yet.
"That's right.
Hugh's main job is to mediate and arbitrate cases for the lower and middle classes. But he also takes on bounty missions to earn gold pounds. Earl Hall has already put up my bounty? But wasn't Audrey supposed to help confuse the issue? Didn't she have time?
No, it's not safe here anymore.
Edward immediately erased all traces of himself from the room. An apparition appeared in a small alley he had just passed by, then cast the disappearance charm. He and Audrey had tested the disappearance charm. Without activating their vision, at least Audrey, being a sequence 9, couldn't see it. Susie, on the other hand, smelled the stranger's scent first before activating her vision and seeing herself. He strode quickly through the crowd. He plucked a few strands of hair from several ordinary-looking people. He turned into an empty alley, took out a new compound decoction, put it into the hair. He drank it with a frown.
Ugh, the taste of a normal person is absolutely disgusting.
When he came out again, he had changed to an ordinary face. He wandered aimlessly for a few blocks and found a cheap hotel near the bridge area. This whole ordeal took a toll on him. He didn't lie down on the bed until evening. If this can still be found, then I'll have no choice but to leave Backland. In the apartment where Fours and Hugh rented. As soon as she got home, Fours habitually lay down on the soft sofa. She made a comfortable and lazy sound.
Ah, it's so comfortable to lie down.
Hugh had recovered by now, but her whole body ached. She frowned and asked, "How did you end up there?" Fours closed her eyes, as if she were asleep. "I was out collecting folk art when I saw you go into that hotel, so I followed you in."
Hee, you actually go out specifically to collect folk songs?
Fours wanted to sit up and righteously refute, but he failed several times. So he gave up and said, "Okay, it's to avoid the editor who's rushing me to finish the manuscript and to buy cigarettes while I'm at it. If you don't submit your manuscript soon, will you have enough money to pay next quarter's rent? Don't worry, it's almost finished, almost finished. By the way, I just saved you, and you haven't even said thank you yet. All you do is criticize me." Fours lazily took out a cigarette, elegantly lit it, and said, "Didn't you even check the target's strength before accepting this mission? The person who posted the bounty didn't say anything, and the reward wasn't much, so I naturally assumed the target was an ordinary person." Hugh clenched his fist, very angry.
I'm going to settle this score with him.
By the way, Viscount Grelint just contacted me, hoping we can take him and Miss Audrey to the extraordinary gathering as soon as possible. Then let's do it tomorrow. Just as he was about to habitually pull out his triangular dagger, Hugh's expression suddenly changed.
Damn it, my triangular dagger is in the hands of that extraordinary individual. I've heard that some extraordinary individuals can use objects to find people.
The two girls looked at each other, and the air seemed to freeze for a moment.
I told you there was no need to worry about the rent.
After a long pause, Fours shrugged. Let's move. Inside a budget hotel, Edward had no intention of going to Fours and Hugh. After all, they had just had a fight. Showing up abruptly would only make them think he was there for revenge. Fours would probably have to waste another bead. Never mind. Let's get some rest for the night first. The next day, Edward, refreshed after a good night's sleep, finished washing up. He apparated to the agreed-upon location. There he found a letter hidden in a crevice in the tree. 2 p.m. The letter only stated a time. But Edward knew that Audrey was telling him that she would be leaving at 2 p.m. She would be attending the extraordinary gathering. He should meet with her depending on the situation. I remember the first extraordinary gathering Audrey attended was a secret gathering convened by Mr. A, introduced by Fours and Hugh. Mr. A is one of the 22 divine messengers of the Aurora Society, a bewitching madwoman with a seductive appearance. She is very active in the early and middle stages of the original work. She is an extremely dangerous element. But then again, Mr. A is more of a fanatical believer. All his actions are in service of the Lord. As long as his Lord is not involved, he is actually quite measured in his actions. It is best to keep a respectful distance from him. Back at the hotel, Edward finally got to eat the famous Dixie pie. But perhaps due to the hotel's limited resources, the taste disappointed him. Chapter 14. The simple and unpretentious life of the rich. At 2 p.m., a carriage departed from Earl Hall's villa, heading north into the North District and then towards St. Samuel's Church. Edward initially followed from a distance, but when he saw the carriage heading towards the headquarters of the Church of the Night, he dared not follow any further and instead waited patiently at a crossroads on the way back. A few hours later, the carriage returned, heading back to Queens. However, this time, it didn't go the same way back, but instead turned a corner and arrived at the gate of another luxurious villa. Horse-drawn carriages arrived one after another at the villa's entrance, and groups of brightly dressed young men and women entered together, as if a noble ball was being held. Audrey, dressed in a gorgeous gown, stepped down from the carriage with the help of her maid, Anne. A man in a well-tailored suit gave her a polite, light kiss on the back of her hand and ushered them inside. Susie followed behind Audrey, then suddenly turned around and barked 3 times. Edward, now with a different face, quickly walked over and easily fooled the doorman with a confusion charm, thus sneaking into the ball. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the yard, he saw Susie wagging her tail and waiting for him. Through the bustling crowd, Susie led him up to the 2nd floor and into a quiet bedroom, where she barked twice more. The door was quickly opened, and Audrey, dressed in a black hooded robe, smiled broadly.
Good evening, Edward. If it weren't for Susie, I wouldn't have recognized you.
Good evening. Edward entered the room and saw Anne fast asleep in bed.
What happened to her?
She brandished her white, jade-like dragon-bone wand.
A sleeping spell saved me a lot of trouble.
Audrey leaped back a few steps, pulled up her hood, and let a thin, black checkered veil cover her beautiful face. You should put on your robe, too. Grillant is already waiting for us. Did your family issue a bounty on my head? I just checked into the hotel yesterday, and someone came to my door.
Huh? But the portrait I gave Daddy was completely different from yours.
That's strange. She abruptly covered her mouth.
Could it be that my brother posted the bounty first? I'm so sorry, Edward.
It's okay. At worst, I'll try to stay out less in the future, and I'll drink the compound decoction before going out. Let's go. Susie, keep an eye on Annie. Goof. The two left the bedroom through a hidden door and continued downhill until they reached the side gate of the Viscount's house, where they saw a carriage already parked.
Wow, your outfit is really, well, just like what Emperor Roselle often used to describe it, very cool.
Viscount Grant exclaimed, having also changed into a similar robe.
Thank you.
Audrey lifted her long robe slightly and gave a graceful and pleasant bow.
Eh? And this is...
Viscount Grillant looked at Edward. This is my good friend Edward. He is a lover of the mystical world, just like us. Hello. Nice to meet you. Viscount Grillant extended his hand to greet Edward. The 3 entered the carriage, and Audrey sat down very naturally next to Edward, which made Viscount Grillant even more curious about Edward's identity. Mr. Edward, may I ask who your father is? Edward is from an ancient kingdom, and he has only recently arrived in Backland. Audrey said this, and couldn't help but sigh inwardly.
Audrey. Oh, Audrey, you lie without batting an eye now.
Oh?
Viscount Grillant wondered. If that was the case, how did Audrey know him? By the way, Edward is currently without a place to stay. Could you help arrange one?
Welcome to serve.
Viscount Greylent then inquired about Edward's needs regarding the size, location, and decoration of his lodging. Although Edward repeatedly emphasized that he lived alone and wanted something simple, at Audrey's suggestion, Greylent ultimately decided to find him a small detached house with a yard in the Queens, with a weekly rent of at least $2.
Is this what life is like for the rich? It's wonderful.
Viscount Greylent then asked about the butler and servants, but this time he firmly refused. As a wizard, cleaning and tidying up the house could be done with a few spells, and he didn't want a large group of people watching him. 10 minutes later, the carriage entered a secluded neighborhood and stopped in front of a rather ordinary-looking house. 2 people, one tall and one short, stood outside the front door. They were Fours and Hugh. Fours has slightly wavy brown hair, and her light blue eyes carry an innate languor. A cigarette is held between her slender fingers. Hugh is rather short, no more than 1.5 meters tall, with delicate and soft features. He has messy, shoulder-length blonde hair and wears a traditional knight's training uniform. At first glance, it seems a bit incongruous, but after looking at him for a while, he seems a little too mature for his age. I apologize for not telling you beforehand. This is my friend Edward, who also wants to take this opportunity to enter the realm of extraordinary beings. Good evening, ladies. Good evening. Edward had changed his appearance, and Fours and Hugh naturally didn't recognize him. He planned to reveal his identity after the party and then ask Hugh why he had attacked him. The group didn't talk much more. Hugh went to the door and knocked on the wooden door with 3 long knocks and 2 short knocks in between. With a creak, the main door slowly opened, revealing a scattered group of people inside. Most of them, like Audrey, wore loose robes and hoods or masks, while a few others seemed unconcerned, their faces exposed. Audrey immediately switched into audience mode. This was the first time she had fully engaged in audience mode since meeting Edward, even though there had been such a long break in between. She inexplicably felt as if she had digested most of the potion. It seems we have a new friend today. The speaker was a man in a black robe sitting on a single sofa. He was also wearing a hood, which hid his face in the shadows. He silently watched the visitor, giving people a sense of looking down at him. The moment Audrey saw him, goosebumps rose all over her body. This man's eyes were so annoying. Edward stepped forward, blocking Mr. A's view, then removed his hat and bowed to him.
That's Mr. A, a powerful, extraordinary being, and the organizer of this secret gathering,
Fours whispered. Audrey subconsciously compared him to Mr. Fool, but immediately felt it was inappropriate. Mr. Fool was a great being of godlike status. How could a mere Mr. A be compared to him?
And I can actually attend the gatherings hosted by this great being every week. Hehe, that's wonderful.
I must ask Mr. Fool next time I have a tarot reading session if Edward can join as well. Seemingly sensing Audrey's disdain for Mr. A, Hugh solemnly instructed. Many sequence 8 and even sequence 7. Extraordinary individuals have targeted Mr. A, but they all disappeared without a trace in the end. As they were talking, the 4 entered the house, and the gatekeeper immediately closed the door. After they adjusted to the brightness of the gas lights in the room, Hugh led them to 2 upright blackboards, which were filled with the needs of the party members. That's the individual needs of the party members. You should be able to understand that many people don't want others to know what they have, so as not to attract the attention of greedy people. Therefore, they will anonymously write down what they want or what they hope to sell on the blackboard, as well as the approximate price and item requirements. Audrey quickly scanned the pages, thinking how cheap it was, but unfortunately, apart from 3 pages of Emperor Roselle's notes, there was nothing she needed. The thought that these notes might be revealed to Edward before being handed over to Mr. Fool filled Audrey with even more excitement. She tugged at Edward's sleeve, pulling him closer. "Here's a Sequence 8 Sheriff Potion recipe. Do you need it?" The sheriff is the arbitrator, and the person most needed present is Hugh. Edward shook his head, took a small sip of the Polyjuice potion, and said softly,
I want the hunter, lawyer, warrior, spy, and apprentice formulas.
You want them all.
"Well, I'll take whatever comes my way first. I haven't decided which approach to take yet." Sure, they're not expensive anyway. Fors watched with envy, his plasmolysis running through his mind. Is this what it means to be rich? He could type out word by word for a year and still not earn a few hundred gold pounds. Besides, I need to rest on cloudy days, rainy days, foggy days, and even more so on sunny days. It's impossible for me to write continuously for a year, okay?
Wait a minute, didn't he just say he wanted the apprentice's recipe?
Hugh didn't think much of it. She leaned close to Audrey's ear and whispered,
Is there anything you want?
"For now, I've only taken a liking to Emperor Rosel's notes. I'm an admirer of his, and I believe that the special runes or scripts he created possess a mysterious power. It's just that we haven't found a way to combine them correctly." As Audrey spoke, she glanced at Edward and saw him raising an eyebrow at her, as if to say, "You're really good at making things up." She puffed out her cheeks and glared back. At this moment, a young man in a white shirt and black vest sitting on a nearby chair excitedly chimed in.
Yes, that's it. I've finally met someone who shares my views. I'm the owner of those 3 pages of notes, and I can sell them to you right now.
Audrey looked bewildered at first, then replied with a smile.
Then please allow me to express my gratitude.
Having received the 3 pages of notes, she examined them carefully, as if checking their authenticity. The young man immediately shouted,
I'm not ready to die yet. How dare I sell fakes at Mr. A's party?
Shu cracked his knuckles, eager to try. "If there really is a problem, I can help you arbitrate privately."
Thank you.
She reverted to being an audience member, but Mr. A's aggressive gaze made her feel extremely uncomfortable. At this moment, Mr. A's attendant came over and whispered to the 4 of them,
You can write your needs on paper and give them to me, or during the break later, you can go to the small room and write the items you want to sell on the blackboard.
After a brief exchange, everyone handed over slips of paper with their needs written on them. Audrey asked for a sample of the audience's recipe. Viscount Grellant asked for the pharmacist's recipe, and Edward wrote down all the other recipes. Hugh clearly wanted the sheriff's recipe, but unfortunately he didn't have the money. "I need the recipe for the potion for the audience and mind readers. The price will be discussed in person. We will purchase the formula for the apothecary's potion at a high price. Acquire the potion recipes of hunters and lawyers. Acquire the secrets of the seeker's potion formula." After the servants finished reading out the requests on the slips of paper, one of them came over with several slips of paper. He first handed one to Audrey, and then, to the surprise of the others, gave the remaining 6 or 7 slips to Edward. "I have a lawyer's prescription. Hunter's recipe, minimum 300 gold pounds. The Secret Seeker's Recipe Plus, all materials packaged for 900 gold pounds. I have the warrior's recipe. Let's discuss it in person. I have the recipe and ingredients you need. Apprentice recipes, please do not inquire if the price is less than 400 gold pounds. Chapter 15. Ms. Shu's Win-Win. Edward was stunned.
Didn't they say potion formulas were rare and hard to come by? Why was he getting everything he wanted? What kind of luck was this?
Look. He suddenly remembered the last thing the limping boy had said to him. Good luck, sir.
Could it be that he had blessed him with good luck?
What's wrong? After Audrey declined Mr. A's kindness regarding other formulas, she curiously leaned over. "Here go." "Here."
Your luck is too good, isn't it?
Audrey could no longer maintain her mystery prior state, and a strong sense of vigilance arose in her heart. In the mystical world, such exaggerated good luck was definitely not normal. Her expression turned serious, and she was already considering how to ask Fool for help later.
My suggestion is, don't bother with them and leave immediately after the gathering ends.
Who? But...
If it was truly good luck blessed by the snake of fate, wouldn't it be too much of a waste to just leave like this? If he had known this, he might as well have directly asked it which pathway to choose. Or should he find an excuse to go to the bathroom and ask him on the paper crane?
He had deliberated for a long time over that paper crane, but still kept it. He still didn't know the reason Will Ossepton was targeting him. Keeping the paper crane would at least ensure the possibility of future dialogue. Viscount Glade waited for a long time, and no one traded with him. He was feeling disappointed when he turned his head and saw Audrey and Edward whispering together.
Such close friends couldn't appear out of nowhere. Could it be that Audrey found him outside? She even specifically found him a house a few kilometers away. Is it for dates? Earl Hall definitely wouldn't know, right? This kind of thing is simply too incredible.
His gossip surged, and for a moment he conjured up all sorts of vulgar, melodramatic stories, thousands of thoughts converging into one sentence.
Oh, poor Earl Hall.
On the other side, Edward had also made a decision. He didn't have that much time to wait slowly. He had to seize this opportunity. "If the money isn't enough, I might need to borrow some from you." This sentence still felt a bit awkward when it came out. Just consider it payment for teaching me English and magic. Edward had made his decision, so she didn't insist, but secretly heightened her vigilance and fully entered the mystery prior state, observing everyone's every move. "Oh, don't even mention it. In your world, Beyonders have too high a resistance to magic. I can't even knock down Susie in a short time. It's really frustrating. Magic isn't necessarily for combat. Many spells are very amazing and convenient." Over the next hour, Edward met with 4 people individually. After some bargaining, he successfully acquired the hunter and lawyer formulas, as well as the warrior and mystery prior formulas and materials. Just as he was about to meet the person selling the apprentice potion formula, Fours approached him. "Actually, I also have the apprentice formula." She lightly stroked her slightly curly bangs as she spoke, still a bit hesitant. "As for the materials, I still have some auxiliary materials left over from when I bought too many. And I also know where to buy the main materials, so—" Edward understood. "I see. Then, after the gathering, I'll come to you for the trade?" "I know it's a lot to ask, but could you advance me 450 gold pounds first? Don't worry, I'll give you the apprentice formula and auxiliary materials as soon as I get back. And the price I'm asking will definitely be lower than others." "All right." Anyway, he was going to buy them, so of course he would buy the cheaper one. Although Fours was a slacker, her character was trustworthy. In less than one night, the 2,000 gold pounds Audrey gave him ran out. Edward successfully went from a rich man to a pauper, like riding a roller coaster. But he didn't feel it too strongly. After all, he hadn't experienced the hardship of saving money penny by penny like Klein.
Fortunately, these formulas and unused materials can all be sold for money.
Another half an hour passed, and everyone gradually left. At the door, Mr. A's attendant found Edward again and handed him another note. "This is a gift from Mr. A. I hope to see you again next time." The note clearly stated the secret supplicant formula. Well, he had the secret supplicant pathway too. Edward had a headache. Acquiring multiple formulas at once had indeed attracted Mr. A's attention. No, to be precise, it must have attracted everyone's attention.
Would he be targeted when he went back?
As soon as he stepped out the door, he told everyone his concerns. Hugh and Fours, who had originally planned to leave first, immediately offered to go back with them. On the way back, everyone was extremely cautious, but fortunately the journey was uneventful. Upon returning to Viscount Glaint's villa, Edward left with Fours and Hugh. Audrey had originally wanted to follow, but Viscount Glaint stopped her. "It's too late. Earl Hall will worry," he muttered to himself.
My dear lady, the Earl knows you're here with me. If I just stood by and watched you spend the night out with a man, who knows if I'd incur his wrath?
Backland Bridge area, Fours and Hugh's newly rented apartment from yesterday. As soon as she entered the room, Fours casually handed a note to Hugh, as if offering a cigarette. "This is for you." Hugh confusedly took the note, then suddenly jumped up. But unfortunately, she still wasn't as tall as Fours.
"You, when did you buy this?" "You've been an arbitrator for almost a year now. You should be able to advance to sheriff. If you miss this chance, who knows how long you'll have to wait."
Hugh was both happy and worried. "But, WFW, the money is a loan to you. Remember to earn money and pay me back quickly." Hugh immediately waved her small fist encouragingly.
"I'll pay you back as soon as I get the bounty for that guy at the hotel."
Edward on the side. "Chigo." He coughed twice. Fours immediately walked to the table, picked up a pen and paper. "I'm sorry, I'll write down the formula for you right now. Is there a washroom?" Edward hadn't drunk Polyjuice Potion since leaving the gathering, and it was almost time for him to revert. He needed to go to the bathroom to pretend to remove his disguise. "To be honest with you, I came to the gathering disguised. After tonight's interaction, we can be considered friends. Among friends, there's no need for concealment." This statement was half true. Making friends was true. Revealing his true appearance was partly to find out who was offering a bounty for him, and partly because he didn't have enough Polyjuice Potion to maintain that face. In the wizarding world, there are roughly 3 ways to change one's appearance. The most common is Polyjuice Potion, but it is not only difficult to brew, but also time-consuming. Next is the natural ability of a metamorphomagus. The last and most difficult method is to use transfiguration to change one's appearance. But this requires extremely high mastery of transfiguration, and it seems only Grindelwald can achieve it. Oh, by the way, no matter what you see in a bit, don't act impulsively. Fours was confused. What does he mean?
"Maybe he's too ugly, and it makes people want to punch him."
A few minutes later, Edward walked out of the bathroom.
"He's actually that young?"
No sooner had Fours exclaimed than Hugh unhesitatingly grabbed the chair closest to her to throw it. But the next second, the chair had turned into a venomous snake, coiling around her wrist and hissing at her. Hugh recoiled, shaking off the snake, and looked for another weapon. "Stop, stop, stop! I told you not to be impulsive." Fours hadn't quite figured out what was happening. "What's wrong, Hugh?" Hugh stood in front of Fours, staring warily at Edward.
"He's that guy from the hotel."
Edward raised his hands. If I really wanted to get revenge on you, I had countless opportunities to ambush you just now, didn't I? Besides, if you don't trust me, you should at least trust Audrey, right?" The two ladies exchanged glances, but still didn't relax their guard. Hugh said coldly,
"How do I know you won't kill me to silence me after revealing your true appearance?"
Edward laughed. "How are you sure this face I have now is real?" "Miss Hugh, I just want to know who is trying to deal with me. If it's convenient, please tell me frankly. I also received the arbitration commission at the bar. The other party claimed your conduct was bad and demanded that you be captured as soon as possible." Edward thought for a moment, then asked, "Is it possible to find out who issued the commission?" "They are all anonymous, unless I capture you and hand you over." Hugh's eyes lit up.
Want to cooperate? I can get the bounty, and you can find out who wants to capture you. And win.
Edward rolled his eyes.
All right. I sell myself, and all the money goes to you? Win-win? You mean you win twice, right?
Hugh ruffled her frizzy hair and thought seriously. "How about I split the bounty with you?" Chapter 16. First Meeting with Chemiao. Fours gently nudged Miss Hugh. "The gold coin for the constable was advanced by Mr. Edward, so don't even think about it." She bowed apologetically to Edward.
"Mr. Edward, I apologize to you on behalf of Miss Hugh."
It's fine. I didn't lose anything anyway. When I'm strong enough, I can certainly try what Miss Hugh suggested. Oh, Miss Hugh, here's your triangular bayonet back.
Miss Hugh asked curiously.
Didn't you already consume a potion and gain extraordinary abilities? Why do you still need to buy a formula?
"I'm buying them for a few of my friends, otherwise why would I buy so many at once?" Fours and Miss Hugh suddenly understood that made sense. Soon Edward received the apprentice formula and some auxiliary materials. After agreeing to trade the main materials in 2 days, he said goodbye and left. Fours finally let out a long sigh of relief. She slumped weakly onto the sofa.
Ugh, I'm so tired, Tao. This sofa is really too hard. I miss the old one.
Just then, Miss Hugh's expression turned serious, and she said earnestly, "Fours, you didn't really believe that person just now, did you?"
You were the one who first...
Fours was first stunned, then surprised.
You were just pretending?
Miss Hugh looked at her with an expression of disappointment. "I've told you many times, the extraordinary world is very dangerous. The more easily you trust others, the worse your outcome will be." "But what could they possibly want from us? My 100-word daily updates, or your 5-foot height?"
Oh, right.
Fours suddenly jumped up.
Did we move for nothing this time? My deposit.
Sherwood Borough, inside a cheap hotel. Edward held the paper crane, hesitating.
If I write on it directly and ask, will it be a bit self-incriminating? After all, there's no reason for me to know these things. In the original work, the doctor seemed to be able to see him in a dream after getting the paper crane, so maybe I should try that too.
He placed the paper crane by his pillow and lay on the bed, trying to fall asleep. Unfortunately, without a dream charm, the more he tried to sleep, the harder it was. Finally, after drinking a sip of the dreamless slumber potion, he vaguely lost consciousness. His last thought was,
I wonder if the dreamless slumber potion will truly prevent me from dreaming.
The endless darkness gradually receded, and Edward found himself in a desolate plain. Under his feet were pitch-black stones, not even a single weed. In the center of the plain stood a black spire, around which coiled a giant, silver-white, long snake. The silver-white giant snake had no actual scales. Its body was covered in dense patterns and symbols forming interconnected wheels, and each wheel had different markings around it. Edward thought to himself,
Is this the snake of fate?
Edward then realized that he seemed to be conscious, unlike the doctor who was in an unconscious, hazy state the entire time.
Was this a courtesy from Will Ossipton?
He looked up at the tall black tower, conflicted in his heart.
What should I say when I go in later? Should I ask him directly which pathway to choose?
Just then, the silver-white giant snake's body suddenly moved. It coiled itself into a ball, its red eyes staring emotionlessly at Edward, and a voice that was neither male nor female spoke. "I'm sorry, I cannot help you make a choice. Perhaps you can ask someone else."
Ask who?
The dream shattered. Edward found himself lying in bed, and the sky outside the window was already bright.
Riddlers, get out of Backland.
He cursed under his breath, frowning at the paper crane, and then asked himself.
Ask who?
2 days later, Edward successfully obtained the last main material for the apprentice formula. Viscount Glaint also helped him find a small villa on the outskirts of Queen's District. Because of its remote location, the price was cheaper, and the houses on either side were also vacant. Though described as small, it was only relatively so, with 2 floors totaling over 200 square meters and nearly 400 square meters including the garden. It was certainly a mansion. The weekly rent was 3 gold coins, which amounted to 162 gold coins a year. For ordinary people, this was definitely a huge sum, but Edward, who had just spent 2,000 gold coins, didn't feel much about it. Edward stood in the empty room, taking a deep breath.
Am I really going to live the shameless life of rich lady hungry food from now on?
Edward thought to himself. No, Edward, you are someone who can travel between 2 worlds. How can you be so depraved? I want to make money. I want to be self-reliant. Just then, Susie came trotting in, wagging her tail, and placed a cloth bag on the ground, saying, her voice vibrating the air.
Here are 1,000 gold coins. Audrey asked me to give them to you.
Edward struggled for 3 seconds. Forget it, shameless it is. Audrey said that the house is safe now and you can visit her anytime, using the method only the 2 of you know. Okay, I understand. Thank you, Susie. Chewing on a piece of dried chicken, Susie happily left. The method Audrey mentioned was, naturally, apparition. Since she specifically asked Susie to deliver the message, her meaning was clear. Something's up. Come quickly. Edward's figure twisted, and he appeared in Audrey's new room. Audrey sat gracefully on the sofa, clearly having waited for a long time. Today she wore a relatively simple light blue dress and a soft hat with a ribbon tied around her fair neck, making her look somewhat adorable.
You're here.
She eagerly took out the 3 pages of Roselle's notes, her emerald green eyes sparkling.
Quick, see what these 3 pages say. Next time I go, I must learn this language.
Edward thought to himself.
By then, the great Mr. Fool, you probably won't have any advantage in front of her. Sorry, Klein Moretti.
Edward didn't forget to cast a muggle-repelling charm on the room, then took the notes and quickly scanned them. November 3rd, Matilda is 3 months pregnant. November 8th, Archbishop Van Aston needs my help with something. November 9th, so there's such a secret hidden within the sequence pathways. April 9th, the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun, the Church of the Lord of Storms, and the Church of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom have hostile relations, mutually antagonistic. While the Black Knight Church and the Church of the God of Combat of the Faceac Empire are incompatible. April 13th, I attended the gathering of that ancient organization. The content of these diary pages had appeared in the original work. Edward thought for a moment and said, These 3 diary pages should be records from 2 different periods. These 2 pages first talk about Roselle's daily life, then mention an important piece of information. After becoming a Sequence 5 Beyonder, one can mutually substitute with the corresponding sequences of 1 or 2 other pathways, for example, the Sleepless Pathway and the Corpse Collector Pathway. the apprentice pathway and the mystery prior pathway. Audrey was very surprised.
You can even change pathways?
This was somewhat different from the common knowledge she had learned before. But the diary also says that it's limited to those 1 or 2 pathways, and if you substitute with the wrong potion, going half mad is the lightest outcome, and further advancement will be impossible. Edward took out another page. This page mentions the relationships between the major churches, the Church of the Eternal Blazing Sun, the Church of the Lord of Storms, and the Church of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom are mutually hostile, while the Black Knight Church and the Church of the God of Combat of the Faceac Empire are incompatible.
Why is that?
Edward shrugged. I don't know. Then it says that Roselle attended an ancient gathering where all the participants were legendary figures. The crucial point is that this gathering possessed an item on the same level as a deity, but I'm not sure if telling you will cause some danger. You just need to understand roughly. Audrey couldn't help but cover her mouth.
Oh my goodness, what was that gathering?
She wondered if the Tarot Club would also become a gathering of that level in the future. It doesn't say. That's all the useful information. Edward recalled that both the hostility between the churches and the ancient gathering were missing from his memory, which meant they must be extremely dangerous pieces of information to know. Audrey sighed in disappointment, propping her chin and muttering,
Sigh. It feels like I learned something, and yet I learned nothing.
After all, there are only 3 pages. She recovered her liveliness. Edward, have you chosen the pathway you want? No. The problem now is that I don't know what to use as a criterion for selection, Edward said jokingly.
Worst case scenario, I'll just draw lots. In a sense, that would also be a choice made by a deity for me.
Audrey immediately said seriously, It's also possible that it's a misguidance from an evil god. If you really want a deity to help you choose, you should seek a great orthodox god, like the Black Knight Goddess, she added in her heart.
And Mr. Fool.
Edward suddenly realized at that moment.
That's right. I can ask a deity for help. Ah, are you really going to the Black Knight Church? No, I have a better choice.
He smiled. He probably guessed who the Snake of Fate meant by someone else.
I'm going to Tingen City.
On Sunday afternoon, Klein didn't go directly to Blackthorn Security Company. Instead, he planned to sit at the Divination Club for 2 hours. He felt that his mystery prior potion was almost fully digested. During this time, he became increasingly famous in the divination industry. Sometimes he could receive more than a dozen clients in an afternoon, so even if he generally only went twice a week, he could still earn a considerable income. Klein thought to himself,
Sigh. It's a pity I spoke so highly and established such a perfect image back then, making it impossible to change the divination fees casually.
Klein had just seen off Elizabeth, who was suspected of being haunted by a ghost, and was planning to return to Blackthorn Security Company to find the captain. The beautiful receptionist, Angelica, knocked on the door. Mr. Moretti, someone else is here for a divination. Klein picked up his silk top hat. Sorry, I have something to go back for. Next time. Well, this client seems very generous. Klein smiled. You know, I don't care much about money, otherwise I wouldn't have set the price so low. Please apologize to him for me. Angelica took out a banknote. He gave me 1 gold coin as a tip. She emphasized the words, 1 gold coin. Klein silently put his hat back, a genial smile on his face.
Which room does the client prefer?
Chapter 17. Miss Hughes' Win-Win Situation. Edward was completely numb.
Isn't it said that potion recipes are very rare and hard to come by? How come I get whatever I ask for? What kind of incredible luck is this?
Luck? He suddenly remembered the last words the lame boy had said to him. "Good luck, sir."
Did he grant himself good luck?
After declining Mr. A's kind offer of other recipes, Audrey curiously came over. "What's wrong?" "Garrulous."
You're incredibly lucky."
Audrey could no longer maintain her composure as an audience member, and a strong sense of unease arose within her. In the mystical world, such exaggerated good fortune was definitely not normal. Her expression turned serious, and she was already considering how to ask Mr. Fool for help later.
My advice is to ignore them and leave as soon as the party is over.
"But, Blount, if it really is good luck, blessed by the Mercury Serpent, wouldn't it be a pity to just leave like this? If I had known this would happen, I would have just asked him which path to choose, or I could have made an excuse to go to the bathroom and asked him on the origami crane." He hesitated for a long time, but still kept the origami crane. He still didn't know why Will Onset was targeting him, but keeping the origami crane would at least ensure the possibility of a conversation later. Viscount Grelent had been waiting for ages, and no one wanted to trade with him. Just as he was feeling disappointed, he turned around and saw Audrey and Edward whispering to each other.
Such a close friend couldn't just appear out of nowhere. Could it be that Audrey found him outside? Hiss! She even found him a house several kilometers away. Was it for convenient dates? Earl Hall certainly doesn't know, right? This is just too unbelievable.
His gossipy nature stirred, and in an instant, all sorts of vulgar and melodramatic stories flashed through his mind. All those thoughts coalesced into one sentence.
Oh, poor Earl Hall.
On the other side, Edward had also made his decision. He didn't have time to wait any longer. He had to seize this opportunity. "If I don't have enough money, I might need you to lend me some more." It was still a little awkward to say that. "Consider it payment for teaching me English and magic." Edward had already made his decision, so she didn't insist. She just secretly became more vigilant, fully immersing herself in the audience's mindset and observing everyone's every move. "Oh, don't even mention it. In your world, extraordinary beings have such high resistance to magic that I couldn't even take down Susie in a short time. It's so frustrating. Magic isn't just for fighting. Many spells are amazing and convenient." Over the next hour, Edward met with the four men individually. After some haggling, he successfully acquired the recipes for the hunter and the lawyer. He also acquired the recipes and materials for the warrior and the spies. Just as he was about to go see the person who sold the apprentice potion recipe, Fours came looking for him. "Actually, I also have the apprentice's recipe." She gently touched her slightly curled bangs as she spoke, still somewhat hesitant. "As for the ingredients, I still have some of the auxiliary ingredients that I bought too much of back then, and I also know where to buy the main ingredients, so—" Edward understood. "I get it. Then I'll come find you to make the deal after the party." I know it's too much, but could you give me an advance of 450 gold pounds? Don't worry, I'll give you the apprentice recipe and ingredients when we get back, and the price I'm asking for will definitely be lower than others." "Okay. Since I'm going to buy something anyway, I'll just buy whichever is cheaper. Even though Fours is on Shinyu, his character is still trustworthy." In less than a night, the 2,000 pounds Audrey had given him were gone. Edward had successfully gone from a rich man to a pauper, like riding a roller coaster. Unfortunately, he didn't feel it too strongly. After all, he had never had the experience of painstakingly saving money pennies and sous like Klein. Fortunately, these formulas and unused materials can be sold for money. Another half-hour passed, and everyone left one after another. At the door, Mr. A's servant found Edward again and gave him another note. "This is a gift from Mr. A. Hope to see you again next time." The recipe for the secret prayer was clearly written on the note. All right, we now have a way to secretly prey to others. Edward was troubled. Acquiring multiple formulas at once had definitely caught Mr. A's attention. No, to be precise, it had caught everyone's attention. Would he be watched when he got back? As soon as he stepped outside, he told everyone about his worries. Hugh and Fours, who had originally planned to leave first, immediately said they would go back with them. On the way back, everyone was extremely careful, but fortunately, the journey was smooth. Upon returning to Viscount Grint's villa, Edward left with Fours and Hugh. Audrey had wanted to go along, but Grelin stopped her. "It's too late. The Earl will worry," he thought to himself.
Grandma, the Earl knows you're here. If I just stand by and watch you stay out all night with a man, who knows if he'll hold a grudge against me?
In the Backland Bridge area, Fours and Hugh just rented their new house yesterday. As soon as he entered the room, Fours casually handed a note to Hugh, as if offering him a cigarette. "Here you go." Hugh took the note in a daze, then jumped up immediately. Unfortunately, he still didn't get Folsgu.
When did you buy it?
"You've been an arbitrator for almost a year now. You should be eligible for promotion to sheriff. If you miss this opportunity, who knows how long you'll have to wait." Hugh was both happy and worried. But, the money is a loan to you. Remember to earn money and pay me back quickly." Hugh immediately waved his little fist to cheer himself up.
"I'll pay you back once I get the bounty from that guy at the hotel."
Edward, standing to the side, W. He coughed twice. Fours immediately went to the table, picked up paper and pen. "I'm sorry, I'll write down the recipe for you right away. Is there a restroom?" Edward hadn't drunk any more polyjuice potion since leaving the party room, and it was almost time for him to recover. He was going to the bathroom to pretend to remove his disguise. "To be honest, I actually came to this party disguised. After spending time together tonight, we're practically friends now. There's no need for secrets between friends." This statement is half true and half false. Making friends was genuine, but revealing his true self was partly to find out who was offering a bounty on him. It was also partly because he didn't have enough compound potions to maintain that facade. In the wizarding world, there are roughly 3 ways to change one's appearance. The most common method is polyjuice potion, but it is not only difficult to prepare but also takes a lot of time. The second is the disguise magus, but this is innate. The last and most difficult method is to use transfiguration to change one's appearance. But this requires extremely high transfiguration skills, and it seems that only Grindelwald can do it. By the way, no matter what you see later, don't act impulsively. Fours' confusion. What does he mean?
Maybe it's because he's so ugly that it makes people want to punch him.
A few minutes later, Edward came out of the bathroom.
"So young?"
As soon as Fours finished her exclamation, Hugh grabbed the nearest chair without hesitation and was about to smash it at her. But the next second, the chair turned into a venomous snake, wrapped around her wrist and started spitting apricots at her. Hugh was horrified and let go of the snake, then looked for other weapons. "Stop, stop, stop! I already told you not to be impulsive." Fours hadn't quite figured out what was going on when she asked.
"What's wrong, Hugh?" "You."
Hugh stood in front of Fours, watching Edward warily.
"He's the guy from the hotel."
Edward raised his hands. "If I really wanted revenge, I had countless opportunities to ambush you just now, didn't I? Besides, if you don't believe me, you should believe Audrey, right?" The 2 women exchanged a glance, but remained wary. Hugh said coldly,
"How do I know you won't kill me to silence me after you reveal your true colors?"
Edward laughed. How can you be so sure that this face I have now is real? Miss Hugh, I just want to know who is trying to get me. If it's convenient, please tell me frankly. I also received the arbitration request at a bar. The other party claimed that your behavior was egregious and demanded that you be arrested as soon as possible. Edward thought for a moment and then asked, "Is it possible to find out who issued the commission?" "They're all anonymous, unless I capture you and send you there." Hugh's eyes lit up.
Want to cooperate? I can get the bounty, and you can find out who wants to capture you. It's a win-win situation.
Edward rolled his eyes.
Fine, fine. I'll sell myself, and you get all the money? A win-win situation. You win twice, don't you?
Hugh rubbed his frizzy hair and thought about it seriously. "How about I split the bounty with you?" Chapter 18. Klein is responsible for this. Inside the agate room. Edward finished a cup of coffee and finally waited for Klein to return. "Sorry, I had an upset stomach yesterday, so you had to wait." Klein sat down again, a confident smile on his face.
But I just did another divination in the bathroom. If you trust me—
He pointed his finger at the apprentice note. "This might be more suitable for you."
I trust you.
Edward's tone was firm, without hesitation.
Chen?
Klein, who had prepared a bellyful of reasons, was a little surprised. "Why aren't you playing by the rules?" Just now, he clearly showed signs of severe decision-making difficulty, so why is he so straightforward now?
Oh, Mr. Moretti, thank you so much.
Edward stood up and grabbed Klein's hand. "Otherwise, I might have had to struggle for another 10 days or half a month, and ultimately choose something completely unsuitable for me." Edward then pulled out a 10-pound banknote.
A small token of my appreciation.
"Ah, you're too kind." Klein was unaccustomed to his enthusiasm, but quickly became immersed in the joy of earning another 10 pounds. A secret supplicant is indeed a promising profession. Edward put on his hat, bowed backward, and was about to leave when Angelica arrived again, an apologetic expression on her face. "Excuse me for interrupting, Mr. Moretti. Another guest is looking for you. It's Miss Magos." Edward subconsciously glanced at the club's reception area. A girl with a lotus-leaf hat and golden hair stood there, her eyes vacant. Her skin was an unhealthy pale, and her long fingers unconsciously stroked her slightly bulging lower abdomen, mumbling something. As if sensing Edward's gaze, the girl looked over, her confused eyes suddenly becoming excited.
Is that you?
She stared straight at Edward, uttering a dreamlike question. In an instant, Edward felt like a frog stared at by a poisonous snake. He was incredibly terrified, yet his legs were unable to move an inch.
Is that you?
She came closer, her questioning voice a little louder.
It's not me. It's not me.
Edward yelled in his heart, but not a single word came out of his mouth. Despair, terror, and creepiness. At this moment, Edward personally experienced what Klein felt in the original novel.
Mr. Edward, what's wrong?
Klein walked out and patted Edward, puzzled. His body trembled, and he finally regained consciousness. He immediately turned and walked in the opposite direction. I'm going back. You, be careful." Before Klein could react, he quickly ran away. Once he reached a place where no one could see him, an apparition made him disappear. "The exit is over there." Klein was bewildered and looked at Magos. "I'm very sorry, Miss Magos. I still have no clue about Lanulus for now." Magos didn't even look at him. She looked at the place where Edward left, her expression turning confused again.
Gone, gone.
She gently stroked her lower abdomen.
Okay, then let's go home.
She mumbled as she walked straight away. Only Klein was left utterly dumbfounded.
What is going on?
Outside Tingen City. Edward's figure appeared out of thin air. He staggered a few steps forward, almost falling.
You scared me to death.
He quickly took out the secret supplicant's formula note, tore it to shreds, and then burned it to ashes with a blazing flame, scattering them with the wind. Then, without stopping, he used apparition multiple times in a row, finally returning to his villa in the Empress Borough.
I almost finished.
He collapsed onto the sofa, picked up the teapot on the table, opened the lid, and gulped down the contents. His frantic thoughts gradually calmed down.
Migos, the true creator's body of descent, the first boss-level enemy Klein faced in the original novel. But why would she come looking for me? Is it related to Mr. A? No, he shouldn't have that much power. Could it be that evil god discovered my identity?
Edward's breath hitched. As an invading outsider with weak strength, he had long prepared himself for being discovered by the gods of this world. But when it actually happened, Edward still felt a wave of despair, a deep sense of powerlessness.
I hope I'm just overthinking it. I hope Magos was just attracted by something on me, just like that snake of fate.
He suddenly paused. Perhaps the snake of fate had already discovered his identity as an outsider? Thinking this, Edward had the illusion of running naked in broad daylight under the noses of all the big shots. He quickly patted his forehead repeatedly, forcing himself not to overthink. Why think so much? For now, I should quickly consume the potion and become a beyonder. That being said. But Edward didn't rush. Instead, he went out for a big meal first, then had a good night's sleep to restore his energy and adjust his state to the best. In between, he went to Audrey's place to remember every detail of potion preparation. By the time he returned to the villa, it was already dark. The half-moon, scarlet as blood, shone through the bay window, casting its crimson light onto the floor. Even though he had lived here for nearly a week, he still felt a bit uncomfortable. As usual, he first cast an expulsion spell and took out the apprentice's formula. Main ingredients: 20 ml of Hornacus Gray Mountain Goat, blood plus 30 grams of star crystal. Auxiliary ingredients: 100 ml of pure water, plus 9 drops of mandrake juice, plus 4 times of golden mint leaves, plus 4 drops of hemlock juice, plus 4 times the teen. Blood grass. Then he took out the crucible and poured the main and auxiliary ingredients into it in order. The liquid in the pot slowly began to boil, and a phantom mist instantly rose, making the room hazy. A few seconds later, the mist receded, leaving only a small blob of viscous black-gray liquid in the crucible, like a drop of water on a lotus leaf, hovering close to but not touching the pot's wall. He carefully poured this water drop into a cup. Through the glass, he could vaguely see countless starlight hidden within the black liquid, emitting tiny specks of light. Is this the apprentice's potion?
Well, let's give myself a buff first.
Edward took out a small bottle of Felix Felicis and took a small sip. Instantly, he had the illusion of being reborn.
Feeling energized.
He picked up the apprentice potion and drank it in one gulp. A cool sensation slid down his throat into his stomach. Before he could even taste it, he began to twitch violently. His vision quickly blurred, and everything within his sight seemed to have an extra layer of overlapping red, yellow, and blue shadows. A profound and indescribable piece of information surged into his consciousness. His body was like it had landed on a trampoline, bouncing sharply upwards. He struggled to open his eyes and found another version of himself lying on the sofa, twitching continuously. This should be consciousness, leaving the body, or rather soul, out of body. Around him were clear, bright lights of different colors. These lights seemed to have life, or perhaps contained infinite knowledge. Edward immediately understood that as long as he submerged his consciousness back into his physical body, it would mean he had successfully consumed the potion and officially become an apprentice. He immediately plunged his consciousness downward, merging with his body. Edward, lying on the sofa, suddenly opened his eyes.
Success!
At this moment, a crimson moonlight entered his eyes, and the world before him suddenly turned blood red. Immediately after, endless gibberish surged from all directions.
Don't save me! 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 Don't save me!
The sound was piercingly sharp, making him once again experience the pain of fingernails scratching a blackboard or a silver needle piercing and twisting under a fingernail. It was infinitely more painful than his last return to the Harry Potter world. In an instant, his brain felt like it was about to explode.
This is Mr. Door's ravings!
Edward screamed and rolled off the sofa onto the floor, struggling in agony. His fingernails and hair grew abnormally long, leaving blood-stained scratches on the floor.
Am I losing control? Why is this happening? Why?
Edward became more and more pained. He felt as if his entire body was at a high temperature, about to turn into steam, erupting from his 7 orifices. No, from all the pores on his body.
No, I can't just accept my fate like this. There must be another way.
Suddenly, a sharp burning sensation came from the back of his hand. The next second, he was in a dark night sky, with a faint, indistinct door before his eyes.
A door?
Is this the door, cheat, that brought me across worlds? He didn't have time to think much and placed his hand on the door. The next second, he was clear-headed. The bone-deep pain, irritation, madness, and despair from before seemed to have never existed, as if it was just an illusion. Tingen City. Klein was immersed in a dream of earning £1,000 a day when he suddenly heard layers of echoing, ethereal prayers.
Who is it this late?
Klein sat up, annoyed, extremely displeased with the scoundrel who had ruined his beautiful dream. However, he quickly realized that someone was praying to him using a 3-stage description. He listened carefully and could only confirm that the supplicant was a man, his voice hoarse, seemingly suppressing some kind of pain.
Did Hanged Man or Little Sun run into trouble?
He quickly got up from bed, walked 4 steps backward, and entered the majestic palace. A phantom star, expanding and contracting with deep red light, immediately caught his attention.
Is it a new person?
Klein sat at the end of the ancient and mottled bronze long table. After a brief hesitation, he tapped with his left hand, extending his spirituality to touch the red star that was rippling. The surrounding scene suddenly changed. He saw a messy room and a person wailing miserably. From his appearance, he was clearly in a state of losing control. Not only was his hair growing at a visible speed, but the stratum corneum of his skin was also covered with an eerie white glow. Suddenly, the person calmed down. He unconsciously rolled over, and Klein took the opportunity to get a rough look at his face.
Isn't this Mr. Edward who came for divination during the day?
So he took my advice, consumed the potion, and then lost control?
Damn it.
Does that mean I bear indirect responsibility? Chapter 19. The 4th member of the Tarot Club. Klein uncomfortably touched his nose, then dismissed the ridiculous thought. Taking potions is inherently full of unknowns and dangers. I merely divined that he was more suited to being an apprentice. I didn't say he wouldn't lose control. Besides, even if I wanted to help, I have no experience in that area.
However, is he out of danger now, or has he completely lost control? Do I still need to meddle?
Klein hesitated repeatedly, but still reached out his hand towards the constantly rippling halo. Immediately after, he let his spirituality surge out wildly, establishing a stable and mysterious connection.
Last time I connected with Little Sun, my spirituality was already very strained, yet this time it hasn't exceeded the burden? Well, consider yourself lucky.
Edward, having returned to normal, his first reaction was to continue pushing the door with force. However, it simply wouldn't open. In a flash, he vaguely understood that this was because his sequence was not high enough. Since that's the case, how do I get back from here? Go back! Wake up! He tried every method he could think of, but nothing worked. Just then, the darkness quickly receded, replaced by boundless gray mist, and Edward suddenly found himself lying on a void-like ground. He got up in a daze and immediately saw the endless grayish-white mist. In front of him was an ancient, mottled bronze long table, surrounded by towering stone pillars. This was a majestic, ancient palace.
Could this be?
He abruptly looked towards the top of the bronze long table, where a mysterious figure, wrapped in thick gray mist, seemed to be looking down at everything.
Fool! Fall?
He had only briefly lost control. Why was he brought to Saphira Castle by Klein? His mind raced, and he quickly thought of a way to respond. You are. Klein rested his chin on his hand, his blurred face showing no discernible expression. You can call me Mr. Fool.
Mr. Fool?
Klein activated his spirit vision and found that Edward was as healthy as he had been during the day, but his emotions seemed tense and apprehensive. Mr. Fool, was it you who saved me from losing control?
It seems you were fine before I summoned you up.
However, Klein still nodded slightly. Sort of.
Thank you so much, great existence. I am willing to offer you my flesh and soul to express my sincerest gratitude.
Why is it always flesh and soul again? Little Sun was like this before.
I have no interest in the flesh and souls of mortals. He replied again. I like fair trades. You can obtain what you desire from me with anything you can acquire. Note, the value must be equivalent. Edward was stunned. But I have nothing.
No, you have gold pounds.
But the great Mr. Fool naturally wouldn't make such a mundane request. I am very interested in secrets hidden in long history, such as Roselle's notes.
Roselle the Great's notes?
Edward immediately looked shocked. His head bowed even lower.
You are indeed a great existence. You can even understand Roselle the Great's notes, which no one has been able to decipher for hundreds of years. You must be the embodiment of wisdom, an ancient and great existence, one that can make the sun and moon pale in comparison.
Mr. Fool coughed unnaturally. No amount of praise holds any meaning for me. Respected Mr. Fool, I do not possess Roselle the Great's notes, but I have seen some knowledge about mysticism in some ancient books, and my entry into the mystical world is also related to this.
You didn't say that when you came to me for divination during the day, and your spirit body's aura clearly reveals that you are lying.
Those books, however, did record many of Roselle the Great's experiences when he first rose to power. There's only one piece of information related to Roselle the Great's notes. For so many years, the major churches seem to have been trying to find out how he made those blasphemy slates in his later years from his notes.
Blasphemy slates?
Mr. Fool straightened up slightly, showing some interest. It seems the great emperor made them based on the contents of the blasphemy stone tablet. Each blasphemy slate records a complete pathway. Klein's heart trembled.
This means that if he could get the blasphemy slate for the diviner pathway, he would then have all the subsequent potion formulas?
but he remained outwardly calm. Anything else?" Edward said, embarrassed. "For more, I'll have to go back and continue searching and fabricating." Mr. Fool's tone was unhurried. He was inwardly hesitating whether to let Edward become a member of the Tarot Club and participate in the upcoming weekly gatherings. After all, he didn't know Edward well and wasn't sure of his character. What if something went wrong?
Speaking of which, my understanding of Hanged Man, Little Sun, and Justice is also rather limited.
Since the Tarot Club has just been established, I'll relax the requirements a bit for now. If any existing members have major issues, I can just remove them directly, as the authority to invite people to each meeting is always in my hands. Having thought this through, Klein suddenly felt enlightened. I will hold a gathering here every Monday afternoon. At that time, others similar to you will attend the gathering. I can allow your inclusion, but you must abide by certain things." Klein smiled slightly. "You cannot reveal my affairs to anyone unless you have my permission."
"I respectfully obey your command, Mr. Fool."
"Before that, you need to decide on your code name." Klein smiled and pointed to the surface of the bronze long table, where a set of tarot cards had materialized. "Choose a card as your code name, excluding Fool, Justice, Hanged Man, and the Sun." Edward looked at the 22 cards, unable to make up his mind. He had never studied tarot cards before and didn't know what they represented. "Forget it, I'll leave it to fate." He flipped over all 18 cards, quickly shuffled them, closed his eyes, and blindly picked one.
"It's decided. It's you."
Klein's mouth twitched as he watched.
This guy really has decision paralysis? Wasn't that supposed to be a problem only for the poor? You're clearly very rich, aren't you?
He flipped over the chosen tarot card. The image was of a precarious tower, on the verge of collapsing at any moment. The Tower card. In tarot cards, the Tower is a card with strong symbolic meaning. It is usually associated with concepts such as disaster, destruction, and demise, and is a notoriously ominous card. He hoped that letting him join the Tarot Club wasn't a mistake. "Remember your choice. It will accompany you throughout your life," Klein said in a practiced, oracle-like tone. At the same time, he extended his hand, severed the connection, and then watched the crimson light retract. Edward, across from him, turned into a phantom and gradually dissipated. Backland. As a burst of crimson light dispersed, Edward returned to the villa. A slight burning sensation came from the back of his right palm, and then the crimson light spiraled inward, condensing into a strange symbol that drilled into the back of his hand, completely disappearing.
Sigh.
Edward let out a long sigh. He had wanted to join the Tarot Club, but he had planned to do so after preparing a good story. Now, due to an inexplicable loss of control, he had joined the Tarot Club without any preparation whatsoever.
Sigh. The Harry Potter plot collapsed before it even started. Will the world of mysticism do it again?
Chapter 20. Apprentice's Stupidity. Above the gray fog. Klein looked at the citrine rotating counterclockwise, unsurprised. So there was a lie? But with this divination method, as long as there's even one hidden sentence in all his words, this will be the result. He thought for a moment, then wrote on the materialized parchment. After silently reciting it 7 times, the pendulum slowly began to rotate counterclockwise. Harmless to me, perhaps even beneficial? Klein leaned back in the bronze chair, a slight smile on his face.
This is enough.
The Backland. Edward slumped on the sofa, looking at the crimson moonlight spilling through the window, confused.
I'm not from the Abraham family, and it's not a crimson full moon tonight, yet I still heard Mr. Door's ravings and almost lost control. Does this mysterious world simply not play by the rules?
Will I hear Mr. Door's ravings again on the next full moon night? And what exactly is that door that freed me from losing control, the one existing in the night sky? He shook his head forcefully, casting those worries from his mind. Am I a Sequence 9 apprentice now? Is that extra energy in my body? Spirit. In the original work, old Neil once said about all living beings having spirit and spiritual bodies. But after Edward came to this world, he didn't feel the existence of his own spirit, probably because he didn't originally belong to this world. Much like chakra is exclusive to a certain world. Edward carefully felt the spirit within his body. It feels like there's no difference from magic power. No, spirit comes from the residual energy of extraordinary creatures and potions, while magic power does not. In terms of grade, spirit should be higher than magic power. In the Harry Potter world, a wizard's magic power comes from the awakening of their wizard bloodline and slow growth with age. Most wizards only experience 3 magic power awakenings in their lifetime. The first is in childhood, symbolizing the transformation from an ordinary person to a wizard. The second is around 11 years old. With the young wizard's enrollment, magic power also undergoes an awakening. The third is in adulthood, when magic power will have a relatively significant awakening. Edward might have good talent, or perhaps good luck, as he had already experienced 3 magic power awakenings before adulthood. His magic power was even more abundant than many adult wizards. However, due to the difference in world grades, the Beyonders of the mysterious world have strong resistance to magic. This made Edward feel very insecure here. Thus he was eager to consume the potion and become a Beyonder. Next is to research how to properly act as an apprentice, and then, as soon as possible, wait. He suddenly discovered something.
This feeling, my apprentice potion, has been completely digested? How is this possible?
After a brief shock, he thought of a possibility. Huh? I remember there was something called acting in advance, right? Apprentice. Well, he had attended Hogwarts for 3 years, and nearly 2 of those years were essentially spent acting as a magic apprentice. If that doesn't count as acting, then nothing else would. But that was all before consuming the potion. Can that still count? In any case, this was a good thing. Edward didn't dwell on it too much, calming his mind to sense the changes after becoming an apprentice. A piece of knowledge obtained from the potion surfaced in his mind. The Sequence 9 apprentice gave him 2 extraordinary abilities, or characteristics. One is open door. There's nothing much to say about this. It's an inherent ability of an apprentice. It allows them to travel through walls and doors by utilizing the peculiarities of the spirit world. The other was the never-before-heard dullness. The dull, you cannot be revived by divinity, will not be contaminated, and will not lose control due to contamination.
What the hell is this dullness?
This seemingly passive buff, dullness, might be better than nothing elsewhere. But in the mysterious world, it's practically invincible, isn't it? This means I will fearlessly face high sequences, deities, and even outer deities.
Huh? Outer deities? Have the deleted memories recovered?
A wave of coolness surged into his brain. The previously deleted memories related to outer deities, pillars, Amon's brother, and others, all recovered. The confusions caused by memory loss before were all resolved at this moment.
Good heavens, did it specifically remove my obliviate to prove its authenticity and effectiveness?
It took Edward a long time to fully digest this knowledge, followed by a question. How did this cheat-like dullness come about? A blessing from a certain deity? Impossible. They don't even have this ability themselves. The transmigrators benefit? Perhaps. Most likely, it's still related to that door. It wouldn't be some kind of conspiracy, right? Then everyone could just abandon the book. Edward let out a long breath. An apprentice with dullness. Is it still the original apprentice? Let's take it one step at a time. First, I'll go find Audrey and coordinate our stories to avoid any slip-ups later. Empress Borough, inside the luxurious villa of Earl Hall.
What? You almost lost control when you consumed the potion just now? What? In a critical moment, you also saw a mysterious existence called Mr. Fool? What? You also joined the Tarot Club?
Audrey was shocked 3 times in a row.
We only separated less than a day ago, didn't we? And you've already experienced so much?
Edward shrugged. That's pretty much it. She blinked her emerald green eyes, staring directly at Edward, hesitating whether to directly state that she was also a member of the Tarot Club. Unexpectedly, Edward spoke first. Wait, what did you mean when you just said also joined? Audrey was stunned. A few minutes later, she recounted her story of joining the Tarot Club. Edward listened, then immediately extended his hand and smiled.
Oh, then we're colleagues from now on.
She perfunctorily shook Edward's hand, then continued. Since you are now a Beyonder, there is some very basic but extremely important knowledge that you must understand. She took out a paintbrush and quickly wrote on the drawing board, looking as serious as a professor giving a lecture. This gave Edward the illusion that Little Justice's class had begun. The key to a potion is not mastery, it's digestion. It's not excavation, it's acting. And the name of the potion is not just a core symbol, but also a concrete image and even the keys to digestion. Each potion is formulated from different extraordinary materials, so they naturally retain the spiritual core of those extraordinary creatures. And these spiritual remnants are like a castle. To invade it, conquer it, dismantle it, you must find the loopholes, find the key. And the potion's name reveals the corresponding clues. Thus, through acting, you can harmonize body, mind, and spirit, disguise yourself as one of them, deceive the guards, and swagger in. So next, you need to summarize the acting principles for an apprentice to slowly digest the potion. But there's one thing you must remember. You are only acting. Audrey adjusted her non-existent glasses on her nose. Edward, sitting on a small stool, raised his hand. Professor Audrey, my apprentice potion has already been digested.
Ah?
She was dumbfounded. This situation wasn't in the textbook. Perhaps it's because I've been acting as a magic apprentice for the past few years. Audrey suddenly realized. So, you completed the acting in advance? She took out her small notebook. I need to write this down. Audrey, regarding my sequence, I have something else to tell you. Edward felt there was no need to hide the existence of dullness from her. When I became an apprentice, some kind of anomaly occurred that I don't understand. Besides gaining the extraordinary ability of open door, it also gave me an extraordinary characteristic called dullness. I won't be contaminated, nor will I lose control due to contamination. Audrey looked up, her expression bewildered.
I'm sorry, did I mishear just now? Could you repeat that?
He repeated it again.
Are you sure? I mean, are you sure this dullness is real and not some evil god misleading you?
Now that you ask, it does make me a little less confident. The two looked at each other. Audrey's eyes suddenly lit up.
Tomorrow is the Tarot Club. You can ask Mr. Fool to take a look then, can't you?
This.
Mr. Fool couldn't answer this question.
Oh, I almost forgot.
Audrey walked to the wardrobe, pulled open the door, and said,
Look, my research from the past few days.
She pushed aside the clothes hanging in the wardrobe, revealing a space opened up inside, roughly the same size as the room.
When did you learn the undetectable extension charm?
I just wanted to try it, and I didn't expect to succeed on the first try.
She slightly raised her chin, an expression that seemed to say, "Praise me."
Your magic talent is probably no less than Professor Dumbledore's. Hee, too bad I haven't found the trick to transfiguration yet.
She waved her wand towards the pen on the table. The pen twisted and turned into a knife, but after a few seconds, it reverted to its original form. Currently, even transforming inanimate objects into other inanimate objects is a bit difficult for me, let alone transforming between living and inanimate objects. The magic in the Harry Potter world is a bit like thinking makes it so. It doesn't follow logic. It just depends on whether you can firmly believe your magic will succeed. No choice. Magic is just that wondrous. Edward glanced at the clock on the wall, stood up. "It's already so late, I need to go back." Audrey curtsied to him, holding her skirt.
Good night, Edward.
The next day, Tingen City Divination Club. As Klein drank Finnepo's Highland coffee and saw off his last morning client, he stretched. Time to go back and prepare for the afternoon's tarot club. Klein put on his overcoat, donned his semi-silk hat, and was about to leave with his cane. He saw Angelica rushing over. "Mr. Moretti, Miss Christina, she—" Before she could finish, Christina pushed her aside and rushed into the divination room, her face anxious. "Mr. Moretti, my niece Megos is missing!" In a certain room, a quill was rapidly writing in a notebook.
The baby in Megos's belly is becoming increasingly mature, about to enter a critical period. At that time, she will be inexplicably summoned and enter the Blackthorn Security Company. But at this moment, the baby in Megos's belly suddenly received a command demanding Megos to leave Tingen City. Zhangwil tried to change her mind, but how could a mere grade 0 sealed artifact twist the consciousness of a deity? Megos is missing. Zhangwil's plan has failed, and he will pay for it.
A slightly pale hand pinched the quill, crossing out the words, "And he will pay for it," then tightened its grip on the quill and continued to write.
Megos's body fell into weakness due to the baby's excessive nutrient absorption, and she consequently fainted by the roadside. This is very reasonable. A kind passerby recognized Megos's identity and intends to take her back to Tingen. The matter is far from over.
Edward ultimately had to accept the reality that the Harry Potter storyline had collapsed before it even began. If this had happened before he transmigrated to the mysterious world, he would have been depressed for 3 days and 3 nights. But now, at least I can comfort myself that as long as I choose the right potion and successfully advance to the middle sequence, Voldemort is nothing. So for the next few days, he doubled his efforts in studying Hermes. When Audrey was able to converse fluently in English, he finally memorized most of the commonly used Hermes words. As Audrey began to study how to learn magic on her own, he gradually mastered some simple Hermes incantations and corresponding rituals. Gryffindor Common Room. Audrey, holding a copy of A History of Modern Magic, nudged Edward, who was burying his head in his books and studying.
Abandon, 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 abandon.
The book says that spells in the wizarding world are mainly divided into ordinary spells and dark spells. Hogwarts mainly teaches ordinary spells, so where do you learn dark spells? Edward didn't even look up. Only dark wizards learn dark spells. But dark spells are generally more powerful than ordinary spells. If we don't learn dark spells, how can we fight against dark wizards? Well, that's why Hogwarts has a course called Defense Against the Dark Arts, which teaches students how to defend against dark magic. Just defense? She leaned closer, looked into Edward's eyes, and asked,
So, do you know dark magic?
Edward naturally knew most common dark art spells, thanks to a dark wizard who had attacked him in Nocturne Alley. After fighting back against his opponent, Edward drained him of all his dark arts knowledge, then erased all his memories, turning him into an idiot. However, J.K. Rowling repeatedly emphasized that dark magic affects a person's temperament. Since he did not encounter any danger afterward, he had little opportunity to use it after learning dark magic. Well, I'll teach you when the time is right.
Thank you.
She gracefully waved her wand, causing the spell book to flip through automatically. Her leisurely demeanor didn't seem like someone who had just finished self-studying for a day. The differences between people are truly greater than the differences between people and pigs. While Audrey remained immersed in the sea of magic, Edward began his first choice of methods for obtaining potions. He wrote down all 22 possible paths. First of all, you absolutely must not choose the path of a prisoner, a demon, a farmer, the moon, or a thief. It's best to avoid the path of fate as well. As for witches, well, hey. That leaves 15 paths. Actually, it's just a matter of personal preference. I prefer the Mystic and Apprentice paths because the Mystic Path's Shepherd and the Apprentice Path's Recorder both possess extraordinary abilities from other paths, making them more versatile. This is related to my accustomedness to the diversity of wizarding spells. But the secret prayer. People can be turned into madmen by the true creator at any time. As for the apprentices, they're not bad. We can leave it to chance. The rest is the audience route, which clashes with Audrey's route, so it's a lower priority. Lawyers and arbitrators seem to be controlled by the royal family or the military, but if we follow K-Meow, once he gets the Black Emperor card, the formula won't be a problem. Speaking of recipes, if I become a generalist, I can clearly recall all the details of the original work, so wouldn't I be able to know most of the recipes? But what would I need these recipes for? To sell them for money? Choosing a path for money is too frivolous.
Oh, right, I forgot to consider the issue of becoming a god.
Edward quickly crossed out some more options. So, that leaves only the hunter, lawyer, warrior, spy, and death. No, death can't be chosen either. He leaned back and muttered to himself. But do I really need to think that far ahead? Becoming a god isn't that easy. Anyway, if the sky falls, Klein will hold it up. I just need to ensure my own safety. The higher the sequence, the more dangerous it is. Considering everything, sequence 4 is actually pretty good. Long lifespan and powerful abilities, that's enough, isn't it? Thinking of this, he patted his forehead. Won't this kind of give-up mentality embarrass the transmigrators? Edward tapped his lips lightly with his pen.
So the formulas for these different methods, holy crap, I don't remember any of them.
The recipes for the hunter sequence are mainly concentrated in the Intis Empire, while the lawyer sequence is held by the Rune royal family. The recipes for the warrior sequence can be obtained from Little Sun and Silver City, and the seeker can be obtained from Old Neil. Of course, theoretically, all of these can be acquired at the Extraordinary Gathering. He glanced at the apprenticeship path he had circled. As for apprenticeships, let's keep them as a backup option for now. In this learning atmosphere, time flew by and the second week arrived. Dumbledore finally found Edward and taught him apparition. I'm sorry, I've been dealing with recruiting a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher lately. You know, Professor Quirrell died very suddenly. Professor, I want to ask, why won't you give Professor Snape a chance? He smiled warmly and didn't continue the topic. I'll think about it carefully. Let's get back to apparition. You've probably heard that the most important thing to remember when apparating is 3 Ds: target, determination, and composure. Once you've decided on the target location you want to go to, you can't waver in the slightest, and you can't be afraid in the slightest. As he spoke, Dumbledore vanished with a snap and reappeared a few meters away.
That's it. Wasn't that easy?
Edward blinked. Well, right.
Ha ha ha.
Dumbledore laughed loudly. Then let's start from the basics. The target for apparition will be, well, behind Fawkes. He waved his wand and drew a circle on the ground behind Fawkes. Fawkes, who was dozing off, was suddenly awakened. It flapped its wings a few times in dissatisfaction, then tucked its head in and became drowsy again. Audrey, who was holding Lilith, couldn't help but laugh out loud while secretly pondering the apparition technique. Then, resolve to take over behind you, Fawkes. Let the desire to get past over every smallest part of your body. Then spin in place, enter a state of emptiness, and move with composure. Begin. Crack. With a loud bang, Edward froze on the spot, realizing he hadn't even started yet.
I did it.
Audrey's voice came from behind Fawkes, her face beaming with delight.
It's really simple.
No, Miss Hall, you're being too hasty. Dumbledore's benevolent smile vanished. While basic magic may be easy for you, never underestimate advanced magic.
Ah!
The next second, Audrey belatedly screamed in terror. She discovered that her right arm and left leg were still in place, with Lilith comfortably nestled on her legs, enjoying the caress of her fingers. The scream woke Lilith. She was startled to find only a leg and an arm in front of her, and screamed in terror. This scene is truly terrifying. The beautiful girl is certainly lovely, but the dismembered beautiful girl is nothing short of horrifying. Don't just stand there, Edward. Take her hands and legs. Professor, please don't say such terrible things so calmly. You could have used the summoning charm or the levitation charm, couldn't you? Despite saying this, Edward still walked over, carrying his left arm and his right leg on his hip, looking every bit like a deranged killer. Audrey was even more frightened. A moment later, Dumbledore used a healing spell to restore her to normal. With tears of fear still on her face, she slumped onto the sofa with Edward's help. Edward said with a hint of schadenfreude,
Audrey, you still have a lot to learn.
She abandoned all pretense of modesty and glared fiercely at Edward, her face pale and still shaken.
Learning magic was truly terrifying, even more so than taking potions.
After a brief interlude, Edward continued to study apparition. But after Audrey's earlier splitting, he couldn't quite manage the composure of the 3Ds for the time being. So he had to ask Dumbledore for help. Professor, your current teaching method seems no different from that of the apparition class teachers in the Ministry of Magic. As the greatest white wizard, you must have some secrets, right? A secret? Dumbledore sat at his desk, adjusting his half-moon spectacles. No, I just learned it after my teacher explained the method. A genius, a big shot, not someone to mess with. Actually, learning apparition is more about overcoming your own psychology. He thought for a moment and added, I can only tell you that with me here, you don't need to worry about the separation experience taking your life. Edward suddenly understood. He gripped his wand tightly, stared at what was behind Fawkes, and then turned around. The next second, he was already behind Fawkes, and he did not split into two.
It's a success.
Audrey looked over with envy, her heart beginning to stir with desire again. Very good. Next, you should try to imagine where you want to go instead of looking with your eyes. Otherwise, the distance you can apparite will be very limited. I have unlocked the apparition restrictions in my office and the Hufflepuff common room, so you can practice freely in these two locations. Understood, Professor. By the way, if I apparate to a place I've never been before, will it be successful? Dumbledore frowned. It's best not to do that. Don't forget, the first D is the objective. If you're not even entirely sure about the objective, it will definitely increase the risk of splitting. Yes, Professor. With a crackling sound, Edward vanished. A dozen seconds later, he walked back in through the door, smiling at Audrey.
It's really that simple.
Our Miss Justice puffed out her cheeks.